Connie Willis, the podcast. Taking you into new ways of thinking, even providing answers to questions you've often pondered. Connie Willis, the podcast. This is a Connie Willis exclusive. Whistleblower. What you're about to hear has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast.
Connie Willis back with the private military, government contractor, and U.S. Navy Special Warfare veteran. Robert Treat is with us discussing his life, his background, and what he sees for the future and what he has learned along the way that he's going to tell us about. Whistleblower, informant, these are the names that a lot of people will tag on to him. It's Robert Treat, as well as deathbed confession. However, he's got a chance to make it through. Go to the GoFundMe that is in the description. Take a look, see where you can help.
Informant.
Glenn was having some trouble with one of their theoretical isotope refineries being built in Montana in an underground facility. And he was like, this has got to happen. This is a high pressure deal. He says, can you make it work? I said, I can make it work. I knew absolutely nothing about isotopes, except maybe what I read a paragraph in a science book once. So I studied the materials, and it turns out they were trying to manufacture an isotope called Osmium-187. Osmium-187 had some very unusual properties. When I asked what the outcome was, because it was always important for me to know what's your goal, what's your end game. If you want me to get to your end game, you got to tell me the end game.
Yeah, that way you can figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
On your own, because you got a mind of your own.
So this product, its intended use was for space-based electronics, because Osmium-187 is virtually superconducting at any temperature. You don't have to supercool it, right? Most of the superconducting materials, you've got to freeze it with nitrogen and get the temperature real low before it starts superconducting. Osmium-187 doesn't need that. So where gold circuitry was the standard for space electronics, this was going to be the new standard, but nobody had ever produced a stable isotope. The Russians were competing; they were trying to create it, but they were using ruthenium as a parent body instead of osmium, and so their fake Osmium-187 would revert back to its original state and become ruthenium, which made it junk. At that point, once it retrogrades, it becomes junk. And the whole problem was a squabble, typical squabble between the investors, the military, and the scientists. Right?
One question back to the Osmium-187, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would replace what they were using for what they would use before with gold?
Yes.
Wow, that's huge.
And it allows for a much greater throughput of data and power.
That's huge, because every computer, everything technically it's got gold in there, right?
Yeah.
So if you can replace that, see, a lot of people believe the ETs are here to get the gold.
No.
But why would you need the gold if you've got something that's better?
They don't need it. The galaxy's littered with gold. There's plenty of gold in the universe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Wait a minute. Let me get my list. Cross off list. Gold. Okay. Go ahead. That's amazing. That's huge. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I was told that this project is impossible to pull off. Nobody's ever done it. Nobody ever will. And I'm like, oh, that's a load of crap. It's about to happen. So I went up to Montana and assess the situation and let them know Wyatt Earp was in the facility and all this crap ends right now. And it did. We got down to work, and since the project was actually progressing, we had the flow through columns all installed. That was a huge thing, getting the flow through chambers installed. I got those in within the first few weeks, and we actually started the refining process. that was when I was invited to join the organization formally. And one of the guys was leaving, Mike was leaving, and he was doing radio projects intercepting, high level data using radio.
And this is CIA,
Yeah,
NSA, something else.
yeah. It's Glenn and Randolph were both CIA. I'm not sure who Mike worked for officially. He was always back in his little laboratory, being a mad scientist, and I never really spoke to him. But he left after he succeeded with being able to intercept every single financial trade off Wall Street using this little antenna array. And it would print out in real time what all of these bankers were doing, where money was moving, who was doing what.
My.
And his project was backed up, and he was reassigned. And that's when Glenn and Randolph sat me down. They said, do you want to be a member of Troika? And Troika was always only ever 3 people, right? So when Mike left, that left an empty seat, and they asked me to be, the 3rd member of Troika, which is a massive honor for me. I was like, absolutely, yes, I'll do that. And that's when they turned the entire project over to me on the Osmium project. And
how old are you at this time?
Oh, let's see. Would have been about 26, 27.
My. Okay. And you said you had wife and kids.
Yeah.
They're your kids?
No, they were her children are from 2 previous marriages.
Okay.
She was quite a bit older than me.
Okay. Well, your mind was older.
Yeah. So there was quite a bit of an age difference, and 2 of her children were actually my age, which was weird.
My.
Having kids.
This is a big difference.
I was a grandpa in my 30s, like, hey, Grandpa Rob, like, don't call me that.
Grandpa Rob is dating my mom. So Troika is under CIA, and usually these groups are in 3 people.
Yeah, this particular one was, and we were based out of Sacramento, California, Woodland Hills. A really nice little house that had been converted right on this creek or river. I'm not sure if it was officially a river. To me, it was a creek. And it was, there was Glenn, there was Randolph, who ran all the programs. He would just sit back there in his office like a spider in the web, and so I was turned loose on total control over the Osmium project.
Amazing.
And that's where one of my experiences with the Grays took place, was at that facility.
This is where it all came together, of why you were doing all these different projects that Glenn set you up with.
No, it didn't come together then. It was that was just where I had a bad experience with them, where previously they had been good.
So it wasn't the first experience.
Oh no, not by a long shot.
Okay, all right.
But
I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to shut up and sit back.
It was a profoundly altering experience. My first experience with the Grays, I was 5 years old, and possibly 2. But my memory of being 2 is very vague and hazy. I just remember being in Norway on the back porch and seeing a light through the tree. And the next thing I know, my mother's yelling at me because I've been gone for 2 hours. And I'm like, I didn't leave the porch. And I got in trouble for lying. I'm like, so I don't know if that was an alien abduction or what at that age. But my first clear one was 5 years old. But this experience there in Montana with Troika was markedly different.
Well, tell me about the 5-year-old first, and then let's go back to the later one.
At 5 years old, and this is where you'd asked me previously about my adopted father.
Yeah.
And this is when I really began wondering what's going on in the world. Before that, I was just your normal precocious child.
I don't think you were ever that, but anyway, go ahead. Normal, no.
I considered myself normal.
I understand. And
Um,
there's nothing wrong with that. You're unique,
you know,
special.
one day when I was 5, my father had called me out of my room that I had to see some people. So I came out of the room and there were 2 beings there in the house, not human. They were wearing white jumpsuits, and my father told me I was going with them. And I was terrified, just like quite literally peeing myself, terrified, peeing. And I'm like, no, I'm not going with them. And he's like, you have to go. I'm like, I'm not going. He's like, you're going. And they took a hold of me and started dragging me down the hall. And they had me by the ankles, dragging me. And I'm grabbing onto the furniture, and my dad's prying my fingers off the chair leg that I was holding onto. And I'm screaming and yelling. But when he pried my fingers off the chair leg, the screaming stopped. And I just let them drag me out of the house. And I remember looking as I'm being dragged. I'm belly down, being dragged. I remember looking up at him and my adopted mother standing in the hallway, watching them drag me off. And I just felt, you betrayed me. And I stopped being afraid of these creatures and started being mad at them. Mm. And they took me, and I didn't suppress any memories about that. I remember everything. I remember they took me, to their ship, and it's pretty much classic description. The room I was in, there was a table, and there was a table up against the wall. It was kind of a round room, but what I noticed was the lighting, because I'm on my back looking up, and the whole ceiling was lit. Like, it wasn't a light bulb. It wasn't like a light. It was like the whole entire ceiling was glowing with this light, and there were no shadows, and there were no sharp edges in the room. I was noticing these things, and I remember thinking, I bet it's easy to clean. I don't know why I thought that. And then suddenly I couldn't move. My body was completely paralyzed. I couldn't turn my head, but I'm screaming inside my head. And I'm now afraid because I'm not able to move, but my eyes would still turn. And I looked over to my left, just with my eyes. I couldn't turn my head, just looked with my eyes. And there's this table, had all these implements on it. And the being that was there by the table, the gray that was there by the table, turned around to face me. And I had said in my head, but he heard me. I said, "Are you going to hurt me?" And he says, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." And when he said yes, and I just said, "Okay," like accepted the fact that I was going to be hurt, I felt this absolute feeling of compassion and love come from him. And I knew it was okay. I'm going to let him hurt me because it's not with malice. This is going to happen. And then this mask came down over my face, and that was that. Next thing I know, I'm back in my room. So that was my first experience with them, but I felt it was a good experience.
Did you say anything to mom and dad the next day, or was that even mentioned, or was that it? No more?
Not a word. Yeah. Not a word. In fact, I barely spoke to them ever again after that.
Well, yours was purposeful. I mean, was any of it because you were just made to forget? Or were you that person that would never forget, but maybe your parents forgot?
I don't think they forgot. I think
no.
They called me out. They knew I was going to be taken. So whatever his relationship was, I don't know. I never got an answer to that. Mm-hmm. And he's dead now. I never will. But that was just the first of many more to come.
What you just heard has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast. Learn more about Connie, her guests, and be sure to join her private membership shows, Blue Rock Talk and Connie After Dark, at ConnieWillis.com. Whistleblower.